Good evening, Vancouver. Welcome back to Canucks After Dark, Monday, March 25th. After a Canucks loss to the LA Kings, but 3 wins over the last 4 games. Been a pretty good week. And as always, I am joined by my co-host who was at the game tonight, Canuck Clay. How are you doing this Monday night?
Parker, I'm great. Thank you. I walked in the door about 20 minutes ago, changed out of my jersey, and then got my room set up. And I know that you knew that I was going to make it on time. I know we're going to talk about the game. I was happy to be there. I was with Lucas. Lucas is all excited. I'm not sure how that guy's going to get to work tomorrow because he had a good time. Overall, a failed opportunity. It was nice to be in the arena. Good, almost playoff-like atmosphere. I know we're going to get into it, but the Canucks failed to clinch. They're going to have plenty of time to do so. They're basically in the playoffs already. I know we're going to talk about that, but happy to be here and happy to be back here with you, my podcasting partner.
Yeah, unfortunately, there was all the clinching scenarios, and I was one of the people on your poll who voted, I would much rather the Blues win. The Canucks don't need to clinch right now.
Yep.
Like, they can just wait till another team loses 2 games and they'll clinch, right? So that doesn't matter too much to me. I'd much rather not play Vegas in the first round and play St. Louis. But obviously Vegas comes back and wins that one in OT. I guess they didn't come back. I think they had a 1-0 lead
they're
most
up
of the game.
Yeah.
Blew it and then won in OT. And then I'm just looking again. I missed most of this game, being at my Monday night softball, which is the worst night for softball apparently. But I am seeing a classic LA Kings game with the shots being 23-19. Sounds a little familiar to me.
Parker, you and I were at that leap year game on February 29th when we basically hugged each other in the first intermission saying, Clay, Parker, is this going to get any better? It didn't.
Didn't.
Yeah, LA Vancouver, Parker, is the epitome of low event hockey. It really is. Rick Tocchet even mentioned it in his post-game presser.
Yeah, the Canucks are one of the highest scoring teams in the league, right? I think they're third in goals for in the NHL, just behind Colorado and Dallas. They do still have the best goal differential in hockey. But for some reason, the LA Kings break out that 1-3-1, and it is an absolute nightmare to watch. So there's too many teams now that I don't want the Canucks to play in the playoffs. I don't want to play LA because every game will be boring.
Yeah.
I don't want to play Vegas because they scare me. I don't want to play Colorado because they scare me. Dallas scares me. Winnipeg scares me. Nashville right now scares me.
On a heater, yeah.
The Oilers scare me. All the teams scare me unless St. Louis sneaks in, which I don't think is going to happen.
Right, and they didn't do their part by losing tonight. So I know we're going to get into this. Once we get going, we can't stop. So I want to, if you don't mind, Parker, let's just recognize these right away. Lucas showing his membership for 20 months. Thank you, Lucas. Lucas also with a $10 donation. That was a playoff-like game, and now I'm trashed after coming down from such a high. Just imagine if we would have won, Parker, what Lucas would be like. A great game to go. Yes, I got to go to Lucas, and next time I owe you the pizza. My pleasure, Lucas. Thank you. And Carol gifts 10 memberships. So Lucas and Carol, and everyone else, thank you for your support. But yeah, people are still in a good mood, Parker, despite the result tonight. Thanks, you guys.
Yeah, and it helps, looking where the Canucks are in the standings. They are still in first place. I guess the Rangers technically have first place, but 98 points with 3.5 weeks to go in the season.
Yeah.
I mean, you can just zoom out. This is a place that we would be so happy to be coming into the year. 3 wins this week, wins over Buffalo, Montreal, and Calgary. All pretty, well-handled wins. There was nothing too stressful in any of these games, I don't think. Mm-hmm. It was just a pretty smooth week for the Canucks until they ran into LA, and LA is, a team that is a little bit scary at times.
Yeah, they they don't make a lot of mistakes, and it was quite a feisty game. I think you told me you were able to watch some of the first period. There were a lot of hits in the first period, actually. It was a pretty good atmosphere. Yeah. They're tough. They're going to be tough.
Yeah.
Even the game we beat them was only 2-1. The game we beat them was only 2-1, so it's not like we dominated either. Yeah.
Yeah, they play such a low event game, and if you get to the playoffs, and if you think about, let's say the Canucks and LA were a first round matchup, and you said, okay, every game is going to be 2-1 or 3-2. What that does is that helps the worst team a lot, right? It adds a lot of variance, a lot of randomness. If every game, you look at basketball, where each team gets 100+ points, there's so many events that happen that the variance, skews, and that's why you get teams that win 73 games and then like sweep their way through the first 2 rounds. That doesn't really happen in hockey, right? Because if there's only 3, 4, 5, 6 goals in a game, the difference between it being 3-2 one way and 3-2 the other way is so minuscule. I mean, you look at the game tonight, expected goals from natural stat trick, 3.22 for the Canucks, 1.76 for the Kings. The Canucks were the better team on paper. High danger chances 15-6. Shot attempts 59-35. Shots on goal 24-19. Every single statistical measure the Canucks won except the goals, which is obviously the one that counts. So that's a big boon for a team like LA, where they're going to be slight underdogs going into the playoffs.
Yeah.
You know, if they can play a game where they're holding every game to 3-2, 2-1, it gives them that little bit of a coin flip that might help them get through.
Parker, it's interesting you mentioned that LA only had 6 high danger chances, because Rick Tocchet kept saying in his post-game presser 8 or 9 high danger. So he was actually giving the Kings too much credit.
And they have different stats too, right? Like they
Sure,
probably use something that they pay $200,000 a year for instead of, you know, the free natural stat trick.
Fair.
But, you know, most of the time we'll get pretty close.
Yes. Thank you, Lucas, for the second donation. And yeah, by the way, if you guys do donate and we're in the middle of a topic, unlike my show where, because I get so distracted, we'll probably recognize everything at the end, but we still acknowledge it. So Lucas, thank you. And yes, lots of ref you sucks chance. You know, Lucas was very mad at the refs. I was a little more balanced, but I don't. Yeah, there are a couple that is the King scored on a delayed penalty, for instance, one of them. So yeah, it's a frustrating night for sure.
Yeah. And that, I think this is what you sign up for. I think we talked about this last week. You're like, oh no, I'm going to a Kings game. And it's, you know, that's what you get. Let's go back in time. Let's go through the 4 games. We'll go through them fairly quickly. If we can. We always say we will, and then we don't. Let's go back to, what was this? March 19th, last Tuesday. Buffalo in town, and the Vancouver Canucks absolutely dominated Buffalo. Just look at the shots. 15-7 in the first period, 10-3 in the second, 9-7 in the third. Expected goals in this game. I want you to guess, in a 3-2 game, how many expected goals in all situations did the Vancouver Canucks have?
Okay, let's the 3-2 game. Even if you give them a bit of a bulge, let's say 4.1 to 1.5.
How about 6.59 to 1.75? High danger chances clocked at 26 for Vancouver. I've never seen it that high. And 7 for Buffalo. This was absolute dominance from the Canucks. You get the Connor Garland goal early that gets challenged for the goaltender interference.
Right.
Because it sort of was a jam play, and it looked like Garland jammed the pad in, but it was the first jam that sort of popped it tumbling over the pad and got through. So that goal counts, and the Canucks got a power play off of that. Nice play from Connor Garland. Pettersson on the power play gets his 32nd of the year. This one was nice. Just a shot. Hughes, really nice play coming to the middle, passes it over. It's a JT Miller shot. Rebound goes to Pettersson. He backhands it through.
Yep.
Third period, Dahlin gets them within 1. Little scary.
Nice goal.
Really nice goal. Really bad defense from Phil Hronek. Where he just sort of burns between Lindholm and I think Garland is on the right wing there. And then he pulls to the backhand just inside Hronek's stick. Well, Hronek, you just got to get the body in front of the guy. But he goes to the backhand and scores on the 4-on-4. And then Pettersson sort of ices it on an empty net from basically center ice, if I remember correctly. Oh no, he walked into the zone actually and made a move.
He deked a guy,
and scored. And then Dahlin scored with 20 seconds left, which didn't matter.
Yeah, that second one went off of Zadorov's foot, if I remember that. And it's funny that we're going to be talking about this, I think, in the Calgary game too, where just because a team scores an empty netter doesn't mean the game's over. There's always seems to be like some weird goal in the last minutes. But yeah, you're right. A good dominant performance, and the Canucks kind of needed that right after losing 2 straight. The Colorado one was exciting where they gave up the lead. Then Washington, they just kind of didn't do anything against Washington. So two-day break, another one of those things. And they came out and for all intents and purposes, it was a 2-1 game. Then it became an empty netter, then an extra. So good win for the Canucks to start off.
Yep. And then they had a game on Thursday.
Hmm.
No breaks this week. Yeah, they had a couple of nice long 2-day breaks, and this was the Nikita Zadorov game.
Yes.
First period, near the end, like 5 minutes to go in the first period. Um, just a pass back to the point to Zadorov. He fires it short side on Montembeault.
Yeah.
Really good screen by Sam Lafferty.
Yes.
And no one, I don't think, expects the shot to go short side from that length. Like you're usually shooting far post. But it just sort of like a bit of a changeup, sort of like ducks under the glove of Montembeault
Yeah.
and gets through. So the Canucks have an early lead. And then Zadorov gets another one. And this time he's where you might not expect him. He's in the slot. um, nice pass as he sort of comes in on the fourth man on a 4-on-3 rush, walks into the slot, picks his spot, and makes it 2-0 going into the intermission.
Yeah, it's nice to see Zadorov score those two different types of goals, right, Parker? The one that, seeing eye shot and then an actual joining the rush. And we've seen when Zadorov's confident and joining the rush, and we're going to talk about tonight how they put him net front. That's pretty funny, but yes, a really good start. And then the people at the game were already saying, "Is this going to be a natural hat trick?" It wasn't meant to be, but still a great start for him. 2 goals in 4 minutes.
Yeah. And then second period, pretty uneventful.
Yeah,
Connor Garland gets sprung on a partial breakaway. Not really. I mean, I think Jack is like sort of right next to him.
it was a weak goal. That was weak
I think this is a great goal. This is
by
such a
him.
good. It's
Yeah.
okay. Montembeault should have the glove up and probably should save this, but it is a
Okay.
perfect shot just inside the post.
That's fair. That's fair.
Makes it 3-0, and the Canucks are running away with it. Slavkovsky gets one back about 50 seconds later. Just a shot from the point. I think this was a really bad failed clearance. Puck gets stuck in Besser's skates. Miller chops at it right into Besser's skates. Pettersson misses it, and it's just a long shot that gets tipped in.
Also, there's a lot of line got scored on there. Interesting.
Yeah, and pretty ugly goal against with Hughes and Hronik out there as well.
Oh, so our 5 best players. Awesome.
Yeah, probably not ideal, but the Canucks get it to 4-1 thanks to Niels Oman in the third period. Just a face-off win. Tyler Myers shot. Beautiful tip from Oman.
Yeah.
Myers is shooting this far wide short side, and Oman pulls it back. That's Pod Colson's first assist of the year.
Nice.
Nice. On a good tip there. Myers has 20 assists now, which is kind of fun to think about. Canucks just sort of walk away with this one.
Yeah, 3 quick thoughts, Parker. I love your reaction on any of them if you want. I'm not sure if you're aware, I was gifted sweet tickets to this game, so I wasn't expecting to go to this game. So once I found out I was going, I texted Andrew, our friend from Game Over, and I said, "Okay, I'm going to go see your Montreal Canadiens play. Tell me who I should look out for, right?" And he says, "Just watch Slavkovsky. He's big, he's good." And yeah, he was quite impressive that night, scoring that 1 goal. And I did notice him just because of his sheer size. So that was number 1. Number 2, of course, all the Habs fans that were there, and accentuated when number 3, Al Murdoch, or someone pressed the goal button by accident. The goal horn after Slavkovsky scored. Did you hear it or see it? That was pretty funny.
I did see that. I saw the highlight of that. That's tough. That's tough.
Intimidated by all of the Canadiens fans there, I guess.
I guess so. Analytically, though, Canucks, 4-1 on the scoreboard. Shot wise, 25-17. So again, pretty low event, but dominant. Scoring chances total 35-12. High danger 13-4. Expected goals 3.1 to 1.3. So 70% to 30. Like by every metric, Corsi 68-39. By every metric, the Canucks just dominated this game, as they should, against Montreal at home. So it was good to see, these first 3 games essentially of this week, and we'll get to the Calgary one. The Canucks just did their job.
Yeah. Yep. And I think as we lead into the Calgary one and the story that we will spend some time talking about afterwards, but it kind of speaks to it, is this was the first game in a while that the Canucks did not win the faceoff battle, because Elias Lindholm went 3 for 13, like 3 and 10 in the faceoff circle. And then lo and behold, he does not practice on Friday. Interesting.
Yeah, and that's something we'll definitely talk about after we get through the games, and we have 2 more to go, and we're 15 minutes in, so we're on our good normal pace. But I think we can pick this up a little bit. Flames come into town on Saturday, Hockey Night in Canada. Niels Höglander opens it up early, and this is, just a perfect play, right? Garland comes into the zone down the left wing on the 3-on-2. Höglander goes to the net while Pettersson goes to the wing and stops, which just creates that depth, right? Like, how do you defend that as well when, you're adding that extra axis? Garland just waits long enough to get that pass through to Pettersson. And Nils Höglander just gets lost behind the 3 defense. They're all in a perfect line across the slot, just all looking at Pettersson. He fires it back door to Höglander as the goaltender's sliding to the left, and he's got a wide open net to tap it in.
And what I loved about that play too, Parker, is right when it started, I think Myers bumped a guy off the puck in our zone, pass it to Susie, who did the quick up to Garland. So all 5 Canucks players puck on that goal that was only 48 seconds in. It was the perfect start to the Calgary's not a huge rival right now, but it's important in Hockey Night in Canada. Canucks fighting for first overall type of game. So it's a great start.
Absolutely.
Yep.
First period ends up being 6-6 in shots, pretty low event, but Nils Höglander, really good, just winning of the battle by Connor Garland in his own zone. For some reason, both Calgary defense had their feet flat, for whatever reason. And somehow you have Pettersson and Höglander on a 2-on-0, but instead of a 2-on-0, Pettersson says, "I'm good. You go have fun, Niels," and sends him on a breakaway. This is gross, this goal, right? Like the fake shot freezes the goaltender at the top of the crease, does a little forehand backhand, and then pulls it forehand, gets all the space in the world, and then just goes bar down just for fun. Right off the back bar. He's got so much skill.
And wasn't there that crazy stat, Parker, that he's tied with some amazing players throughout the league for 5-on-5 scoring or
I think
with
he's
half the minutes or something?
He's 9th in 5-on-5 scoring in being 378th in ice time, I think was the stat. And I think there was another one that he's leading.
Wow.
But yeah, it's silly. He's been so good at 5-on-5 for playing under 12 minutes a game, essentially at 5-on-5. It's crazy.
Yeah. And then, as we always talk about, on that wonderful contract, you got to outplay your contract. He's one of the guys that is doing so.
Yeah, in a cap world, right? Like that's where the value comes from. And if you have a guy making 1.1 this year and next year, who's going to score 25 goals this year and maybe 30 next year, like, you're laughing.
I like it.
Anderson gets one back late in the second. Sort of a bit of a theme with that Slavkovsky goal in the previous game. Late goals in the period. This is one that you want DeSmith to have. I think just sort of a shot from the top of the faceoff circle. I don't think it's defended terribly. Like, it's just you're allowing a D-man to take a shot from the top of the faceoff circle that should get stopped most of the time, but it finds its way through.
One angle, Parker, I don't know if you have it in front of you. One angle I saw from behind the net, it looked like it hit Susie's stick actually and changed. So that's what I thought, but then it wasn't conclusive to me. What do you think? Take a quick look. What do you think?
It does look like Anderson's aimed short side here.
Yeah.
And it might catch the toe and go far side.
Maybe,
And here's the other angle. Oh, actually, that might be clean.
Yeah, see that the other angle, it looks like it's clean, right? So,
but it's definitely on end. Yeah. When he takes the shot, it is 100% on end, which makes it tough. Sure. I don't think Susie got a piece of it, but it was a knuckler.
Fair enough. Yeah, another late second period goal, but again, for a third straight game, it didn't look like the Canucks were in any danger of losing this one.
Yeah, Canucks go into shutdown mode in the third, up a goal, sort of allow Calgary to take it to them a bit, but the Canucks get one back on the power play during the JT Miller chance, essentially. Puck comes from the goal line up to JT Miller in his normal spot on the left faceoff dot. The goaltender's really cheating to the near post and like really cheating. And Miller just fires it far post.
That was nice.
Wide open net, essentially, on Markstrom.
Yep. Game over.
Pretty much. Lindholm gets the empty netter from his own blue line, dead center, which is great. And then, of course, there's the late goal after the empty netter from Hanley. It's his first of the season. Just a random shot. Yeah.
Parker, look at the replay and go to the end and look at the look that DeSmith gives Juleson. Just watch it to the end.
Oh, for being a perfect screen. That's tough. That's tough. That is Joel Hanley's third career goal
Oh gosh.
in 190 games as a 32-year-old.
Yeah.
Not ideal, but
Yeah.
Canucks pull this one out 4-2. And again, analytically, actually, this one was even. I was going to say Canucks are the better team. High danger 11-10 for the Canucks. Everything else was basically 50-50.
Yes. Yes. This one was interesting. It had I watched this one from home, and obviously interested in how Kuzmenko played, and he was noticeable. Like, I heard his name mentioned a few times. But the same thing, like a lot of offense, not a lot of defensive responsibility. And then, of course, Lindholm, after not practicing, plays, scores a goal, and Zadorov had a couple of big hits. So all of the three guys that basically switched teams this season all were noticeable, which was good.
Yeah. And look, it's a 3-0 week. Things are great. And then, of course, we have LA coming to town today. A weird one, a 6:00 start on a Monday.
Yeah.
A little bit bizarre, but there's only 2 games going on in the league. So it's a national broadcast, I guess.
Yeah. So I guess they split the difference, right? It's not 4:30, but it's not 7. Is that kind of how that must be the reasoning, right? It must be.
I have no idea. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I know they wanted me to make sure that I could get it back here for our show. That's what it was.
Okay. Very nice of the NHL.
Yeah, exactly.
7 minutes in.
Yeah.
Kevin Fiala opens the scoring. Brock Besser just gets beat down the wing, frankly. They come down the wing. It's sort of a pseudo 3-on-2. Pass goes to Fiala, who's the trailer. He scores. Besser needs to stop that rush. Bluger ideally picks Fiala up instead of sort of going to Arvidsson, I think that is.
Yeah.
Fiala is alone, and he's a guy who's going to score a lot of the time.
So Parker, this is going to totally sound like first world problems. I was at the game tonight, as you know, with Lucas. I'm blessed to be at many games. But actually, when you're at the games, this makes intuitive sense. You actually sometimes don't notice as much as you do on TV. You don't get the benefit of as many replays of a guy talking you through the replays, pointing things out, even the intermission. So I didn't even know. And then I heard talking about the press conference, and then I just watch it right now. One of the Canucks defensemen goes to change, and no one jumps on for him. So one of the Kings defensemen is out of the place. So in essence, it's still 4-4, but you could argue that where Fiala just kind of walked down, Broadway there, a Canucks defenseman is supposed to be there. You see what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, that would be nice. Now look, Brock Besser has now 37 goals on the year, but that is this Kings game that he let someone by, and the Kings game that we were at, 3.5 weeks ago, that he got burned and didn't catch up to the guy and was lazy on the back check, which is unfortunate. I think he's got some room, especially like if we're getting into playoff vibes, like he needs to step it up a little bit defensively.
Yeah.
Sam Lafferty does answer though with just a gorgeous goal. I mean, the beginning of the season, we were raving about Sam Lafferty being a power forward who's driving the net and creating chances. And for the past 48 games, we haven't seen it. Right? Like he had that hot start, fell off a little bit, but this was that Sam Lafferty. Gets the puck from Bud Colson, does a little toe drag to the wall, just burns his man, creates some space, drives to the middle, just outweights the goalie, slides it through. Perfect goal from Sam Lafferty.
It was awesome. He basically outfought 4 of the Kings skaters and the goalie. So 5 of the 6 Kings guys, he actually had a hand in beating. It was beautiful. And I don't know if he was good. He was kind of, when you kind of brace yourself for getting smoked by crossing the crease, and no one smoked him. He just went right through.
Well, yeah, I think one defender's focused on somebody's in front there. I think it's Pod Colson is in front. He just works his man. Whoever number 3 was really lazy defensively, which helped.
Yes, that number 3, I tell you. Yeah.
However, this doesn't last long. Second period, late in the second period, Lizotte makes it 2-1. Delayed penalty coming up. This one just unlucky, right? Goes to the right face-off dot, thrown in front, goes off of Carson Soucy and Lewis, but I guess not Lewis because he didn't get a point there, or didn't get an assist. Actually, it didn't get a point at all. So it goes off Soucy. and straight in,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is, just one of those unlucky breaks. And that's sort of what I mean when I talk about how the Kings play such a low event game, where if every game's going to be 2-1, 3-2,
Mm,
that randomness takes effect, right?
yeah.
If you're the better team, but every goal is like 60-40 to go your way, but there's only going to be 4 or 5 goals, you might lose some of those times. And then just a couple minutes later, just a pretty ugly one. Kopitar takes a shot from the wing and just drives straight to the back post as there's a battle in front. Puck just squirts free right to him, like right to him. And he's able to find the rebound.
How does the puck get through? I thought that when I watched it at the game, that it went off of Pedersen's skate, but maybe I'm mistaken.
It
I don't think
looks like it's
Pedersen's on
just
the
there, and it's
yeah,
just a jam. I have no idea where that
yeah,
goes.
and Pedersen's not on the ice. Oh, it hit Hughes'
Maybe
skates.
Hughes? Yeah.
Oh, what is it with all these goals? Because it's going off for our guy. Yeah, Hughes' right skate, left skate.
So
Yep.
that's unfortunate. Canucks get one back with 3 minutes to go in the third. Just a Besser slap shot that goes right off of Kopitar's skates, which I guess is a little bit of karma. But in the last 3 minutes, the Canucks can't get it done and lose this one 3-2.
Now, at this game, Parker, watching the Canucks push for the last 5 minutes, and they pulled DeSmith with 4 minutes left, and it worked actually. And then because they had 2 minutes to play with, it's very easy to say, "Hey, how come the Canucks don't play with that urgency for all 60 minutes?" Well, one, it's tiresome. Like you can't do that unless it's an elimination game in the playoffs. And I think everything you said, Parker, to set this up is so true. The way the Kings play, it tires you out. It wears you out. You have to think about how you're going to break through this 1-3-1. You have to deal with all this low event hockey that you simply can't have the cardio to go like full bore for 60 minutes. So it's nice to say, oh, I wish the Canucks did that all game, but I think that's not realistic.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
And analytically, the Canucks were the better team tonight.
Were they?
Yeah. Shot attempts 59-35. So pretty dominant in attempts. They just got to get more pucks through. Unblocked shots, which is Fenwick, 45-29. So they're just not hitting the net. Shots obviously 24-19. Scoring chances 29-13. High danger chances 15-6 in favor of the Canucks.
Yeah.
First period 6-0 in favor of the Canucks, and of
Wow.
course, they're just tied going into the intermission. Expected goals in all situations 3.2 to 1.76. So analytically, the Canucks won 3 games this week and tied Calgary essentially. So if we're in, if we're looking at this team and saying, okay, how are they going to look coming into the playoffs? They're putting themselves in positions to win. I'm curious to see like the money puck, like deserve to win-o-meter, because that's, a fun stat that I can tell you in 2 seconds here.
All right.
Deserve to win-o-meter has the Canucks. It's still simulating, but around 68% of the time, the Canucks should win this game. Okay. So you put them in a 4-game or a 7-game series.
Yep.
And every game goes this way. The Canucks win 70% of the games and, win the series 4-2 in theory.
Right.
But you get some weird bounces. Things don't go your way. It happens.
It does. It does. Anything else you want to say about tonight's game? Because I'll kind of segue into our main topic about playoffs and clinching. We're good?
You're good?
Awesome, Parker. So I want to jump back to something you said right at the start of the show. So there's a scenario today where before the 2 games started, that if the Canucks won and St. Louis lost in regulation, the Canucks would be the first team in the NHL to clinch a playoff spot. For all intents and purposes, they're in a playoff spot right now, but officially they would. So that's kind of cool, especially Canucks fan at home seeing this happen. But there's another school of thought saying, no, we want St. Louis to win. In essence, any chance to lessen Vegas's chance to make the playoffs or be effective. That's a good thing for Canucks fans. And obviously we're going to clinch on Thursday or Sunday at the latest. We're fine. We're in the playoffs. Doesn't matter. So neither of those things happened. The Canucks didn't clinch, nor did St. Louis win in regulation. They actually lost. Did they lose in regulation? They actually, or they didn't lose in regulation, so we could clinch, and they didn't win. So they're kind of in the middle. So neither thing happened. So we didn't clinch, and St. Louis lost ground on Vegas. But I presume, and I won't put words in your mouth, you're feeling okay considering we still have 10 more games left, and Edmonton, if we want to win the Pacific, they're kind of
What
faltering a little bit.
are we gonna get caught by St. Louis?
No.
Like they're 18 points back with 10 games to go. Right? The reason the Canucks haven't clinched is because theoretically the Canucks could go 0-10, the Blues could go 10-0. And
Yes.
even in that scenario, they'd also have to get caught by Nashville. They'd also have to get caught by Vegas. It's not going the Canucks aren't missing the playoffs. Like,
Correct.
obviously, they have 98 points. 98 points is enough to get in every single year since the salary cap era. Essentially.
Agreed.
So the whole clinching thing, like clinching first is nice, but like, does it matter? No. You know, I am, for the last few months, we've been in the driver's seat. The Canucks have been in this spot of being 90+% chance of making the playoffs. Obviously right now they are at, I'm going to check the Athletic, but I'm going to bet it's 100% chance of making the playoffs.
Yep.
Like the Canucks are going to make the playoffs. Clinching means nothing at this point because what really matters to the Canucks is where they finish and who they're going to play.
Right.
And to me, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, well, if they finish first in the Pacific, which is the most likely outcome right now, they are either going to be playing wildcard 1 or wildcard 2, which as it stands right now is likely going to be the Vegas Golden Knights or the Nashville Predators. Two teams that, frankly, I don't really want to see in round 1. The Predators have gone 16 straight games without a loss in regulation, 14-0-2 in their last 16 to just will themselves into a playoff spot. UC Saros is a monster. Vegas is going to be getting maybe Mark Stone back somehow, even though there's no timeline on when he'll be back, but he'll be back for game 2. They're going to be getting maybe Tomas Hertl. They're going to, like, all these guys that Vegas could be loading up with, and they're this team with Stanley Cup pedigree. The Canucks are going to have some scary competition in round 1, but they will have home ice advantage. And that's what I'm really focused on. In a perfect world, Vegas falls apart, St. Louis takes that spot, and then we have a team that, frankly, we beat in the playoffs 4 years ago to face, and a team that I think the Canucks are substantially better than. I think the Canucks are also substantially better than Vegas right now, but playoff Vegas is a different beast.
And yeah, everything you said makes a lot of sense. We're going to win the Pacific, but we have no clue if we're going to win the conference because you have Colorado and Dallas, in essence, with the same record. They're 1 point behind us, and one of them has a game in hand. So it's basically going to be a three-way race for the top of the conference, which, as you said, well, dictates wildcard 1 versus wildcard 2. And even St. Louis, Parker, I know you and I have joked about it. We hate their two goalies of Binnington and the other guy, the guy who, every time he made a save, he would show the glove. Remember? We were kind of joking about it. I think we've lost to St. Louis twice this season, but whatever. I do think we can beat them in a 7-gamer though, for sure.
I do too. Who is their other goalie?
I thought it was like Hofer or something. Yeah. Hofer.
Yeah. Because it was Husso, but he went to Detroit.
Right.
But now they have Hofer. Yeah. And then looking at, look, Vegas is only 2 points back of LA with the same amount of games played. If LA had lost tonight, like it would be a toss up between those two teams on who they'd play in the first round.
Right.
And then it's like, I think the Canucks beat LA in a 7-game series also, but man, that'll be boring.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Yeah. I would like to think they beat LA. And so here's another thought I had too. As happy as you and I are to cover a winning team, do you think the Canucks, be honest, do you think they scare anyone right now? Like, do you think Vegas, Nashville, or LA are saying, oh man, I sure hope we don't line up against the Canucks in the first round? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know.
Vegas should be, just based on their history with Thatcher Demko. Good point. I bet they think about that. Otherwise, I think teams would be more scared to go against Edmonton, frankly. And you even saw that on the Sportsnet panel tonight where they asked, like, who do you think is going to be the best team in the Pacific? And 2 of them said Edmonton and 1 said LA.
What?
Or maybe Vegas, but none of them picked the Canucks.
I'm just kidding.
But, I think the Canucks are a bit of a dark horse, even though they're a President's Trophy candidate. Right. Because you have to think about it, there are 7 teams pushing for the President's Trophy right now. There's 7 teams within 1 point, all with 71 or 72 games played, right? Like
crazy.
It could go, the Canucks could finish 7th in the NHL easily, right? They could finish 8th in the NHL by the time we get to the playoffs and still win the Pacific. Um, I think there's I think the Canucks are scary as a round one opponent, but I think teams are going to be like, wow, I'd rather play the Canucks than Colorado or Dallas
Yep.
or even Winnipeg, I think, at this point.
Yeah. And it's so like a lot of people who are basically saying, I don't think the Canucks are going to go that far, maybe not even past round one and definitely not round two. They're pointing to the lack of playoff experience. And on one hand, you can't argue the facts. You take away the bubble, and the Canucks were last in the playoffs in 2015 when they got ousted by Calgary. So almost a decade, Parker, that they haven't actually played in a real playoff series. You can't hold that against the Pedersens and Hugheses and Besters of the world. It's not their fault, but I think there is a little bit to be said where when you're digging deep down, or you're not sure what you can get away with, or what, just the intensity. We like to think that our guys can handle it, and they were okay in the bubble, but that wasn't real. Even the coach says it all the time. The players say it all the time. That was like almost like a fake playoff sort of thing.
That was 4 years ago.
Yeah,
Right? It's a long 3.5, I guess. That's a long
Yep.
time ago.
Yeah.
And most teams don't go on a big run their first time, right? You look back at Tampa Bay, when they built that real Stanley Cup roster, they won 63 games. They got swept by Columbus, right? You look at Washington, right? Everyone thought Ovechkin's run was over because they, got knocked out 3 years in a row. They then went on and won the Stanley Cup. Took them 4 kicks at the can, right?
Okay,
Even
yeah.
Colorado, Colorado wins. Was it last year they won? But
2 years.
2 years ago, but they got knocked out a couple times before that, right? Like no team on their first push with a core wins a Stanley Cup, really.
Yeah.
Right. Like Dallas, I think is going to be a dangerous team, right? Last year they sort of floundered, but you give Jason Robertson another year, you give Jake Ottinger another year, and they look scary, right? Winnipeg, they've been in the mix for a while. The Oilers have had how many kicks at the can, right?
Yeah.
Same with, Florida had that run last year. They're going to be scary. Carolina has been in the mix in the playoffs for the last few years. Like I think back to when I think they lost to the Rangers in that one series maybe 3 years ago. And it was like, wow, I thought they were going to be a favorite, but it was really their first kick at the can. And all of these teams are sort of having their second, third, fourth, fifth runs at this time, while the Canucks are having their first. And I think that's going to be a lot of people look at like the Athletics projections and like, oh, why do the Canucks only have a 3% chance of winning the Stanley Cup? It's 4 now, while Carolina has a 21% chance, right? How does that math work out? Well, it's because one, Carolina has an easier path, right? They're going through Philadelphia or Washington instead of, LA or Vegas or whoever. But also they have, they've been there and they've had that experience, and that's a reason that I'm not getting my hopes too high, but the Canucks could be a real Cinderella story.
I love your point though about and it's not us making excuses. It's not us doing a verbal free roll where we're saying that the Canucks shouldn't make it that far, and then when it's true, it becomes true. We can say, "Oh, I told you so." It's not that at all. It's the fact, that when the Canucks went to the Stanley Cup final in 2011, what happened the first prior 2 years? They got beat up by the Chicago Blackhawks 2 years in a row. So you're right, Parker. It's very rare that you come in a year after, especially multiple years not being in, and you do some damage. A lot of these teams have kind of, not to use a funny Twitter Canucks term from the past week, but a lot of teams have paid their dues before they get to the a deep run. So we'll see what happens. Maybe they buck the trend, but I wouldn't count on it.
Yeah. And look, that's why the odds are where they are, right?
Yeah. Yes.
That's why the Oilers have a 14% chance of winning the cup by this model compared to the Canucks 4, which I think is a little silly, but they're probably going to play LA instead of Vegas in the first round, right? And they'll still have home ice. And then, maybe they get like the Preds or the Jets in round 2. So it's really a toss up once you get to that point. And the teams that have been there before, you look at Boston last year, right? They win the President's Trophy by a landslide and they get dumped by Florida. But they also had like no adversity, right? Like they just waltzed their way into, 70 wins or whatever they felt like they had. And then, they faced a good team and lost. So, the Canucks are going to win a handful more games this year, maybe 6 out of the next 10, let's say, and walk into the playoffs, and we'll see where they go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh shucks, I had a good point, but it's gone now. Okay, no, I agree with everything you just said.
I'll take
Man.
it.
Okay, that sounds good. You want to talk about Lindholm?
Yeah. Yeah, this is an interesting one. So he gets no practice on, what was it?
Friday.
Friday.
Yeah.
Plays Saturday.
Yep.
Doesn't practice Sunday. Doesn't play Monday. Now Tocchet says day to day. I saw some rumors swirling like, oh, maybe he was injured before the trade. Can the Canucks file a grievance? Like,
I didn't see that.
But I think that was just people. That wasn't anyone reputable. But yeah, the Canucks are now without Lindholm, at least for today. And look, if you have a guy who's at 80%, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
and you say, hey, if you take a week off, you'll be at 100%. Right now is the time to do that, right? After today, the Canucks don't play till Thursday, and then Sunday, and then Tuesday, right? So they have some gaps here. They have 10 games left in the season, and their last game's April 18th. They have 7, 14, 21, 24 days to play their last 10 games. Nice. They're averaging essentially 2.5 days of rest between every game here on out. If you've got guys who are a little banged up, especially with the games coming up, you have Dallas, who's a hard team, but not a division rival.
Yeah.
You have Anaheim, a team that you should beat most of the time. And then you play Vegas next Tuesday. So if you need a week, you get a week. Then you have Arizona. And then really the last 6 games are going to do a lot for standings wise, right? You have LA, Vegas, Arizona, which doesn't matter, Edmonton, Calgary, Winnipeg, right? So some big games late down the stretch. But again, the Canucks are in a playoff spot and they are most likely going to win the Pacific Division. So, do you really need to be, if you're going to give a guy an extra week of rest, now's the time to do it.
Mm-hmm. This is so fascinating, Parker. Like, forget about how much we gave up to get him. Forget about any of that. Just looking at, kind of what you've been doing is predicting the next 10 games. It's weird. Lindholm goes 3-10, 23% in the faceoff circle on Thursday. So everyone said, oh, must be something with his wrist or his upper body. Doesn't practice Friday. Then it goes 8-3 on Saturday. Maybe he was inspired against his former team, and then doesn't practice today. And then Rick Tocchet doesn't, it'd be nice if it depends what you want, but it'd be nice. He didn't say when a reporter suggested, might you shut him down for the rest of the season until the playoffs? Instead of saying, no, we're not going to do that, he'll be fine. It was like, we'll see. We're still trying to figure out what's going on here. We're trying to take it day by day. That's pretty crazy that he didn't actually deny that or at least shut it down right away. 9 points in the 22 games, -5. So not at least he's 60% in the faceoff circle. But you and I both said, as long as he does in the playoffs what he's supposed to do, and that's win faceoffs, play good on defense, penalty kill, right shot, option, all those things. And if he needs to get better to do that and maybe play only half of the games for the final 10, I'll take it. I'm not even worried about what happens next year, Parker. I think he's good as gone, right? There's no way. Yeah.
You can absolutely load manage at this point if you want to, right? Looking at the quotes here, Elliot Friedman says, quote, they're managing on a day-to-day basis. Hopefully they get some clarity on what exactly is bothering him next week so they'll get back to full health.
Oh.
But that was, I think, Saturday. That was Saturday. So, it's tough, right? Like Lindholm hasn't been the guy in the hopes that he would be, right? I mean, great defensively, great in the faceoff circle, but when that trade was made, we even said on the record, we said, hey, he was great with Gaudreau. He was great with Toffoli. He just needs some stars to play with. And that hasn't really happened. Right. So if it's day to day, but they're thinking like, I bet if the Canucks are in the playoffs, I bet he's playing right now. I don't think he's that injured to the point where he's like, oh, I can't go. Cause he went Saturday. But I think, they're looking at this of like, hey, what upside does Elias Lindholm give us in the next, 2 weeks?
Mm-hmm.
Very little. I mean, the way he's been playing, very little. And the stakes are very low, right?
Right.
So, like there's no real reason not to give him the week off. Same with Demko, right? Like give him an extra week if you need to. Like if you think if Demko's ready to come back on for that like April 3rd game, I mean, give him until the 8th, right? Like
Yeah.
give him an extra 5 days to rest to make sure he's 100% because these games mean absolutely nothing, especially with the team playing as well as they have been over the last week, winning 3 of the 4 games. Give them the rest. Let them get dialed in for the playoffs.
So Parker, I don't disagree with you that these games in the big scheme of things don't need nothing in comparison to the playoffs that the Canucks haven't been in properly in the past 9 years. I agree completely. What they're talking about on the Sportsnet post game show when I was driving home listening is they said though typically on a night like this, because LA is so deep down the middle with PLD, with Kempe, and with who's their third guy? Is Kopitar a center?
Kopitar,
Who's there? Yeah. So, and then Vegas is going to be that deep with Eichel and Stevenson and Carlson. So they're making the point, and Edmonton even, they're making the point that when Lindholm's healthy, it's nice to have that luxury of going Miller, PD, Lindholm down the middle, because they said when you take Lindholm out of the lineup, like Suter and Bluger, they're okay, but they're not Lindholm is their point.
Yeah, Lindholm can be a good matchup guy, right?
Yeah.
Like if you end up in the playoffs against McDavid, Lindholm might be the guy you put there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Try to shut that line down, and then that frees up Pettersson and Miller to play against lesser competition in theory.
Right.
But yeah, the most important thing is that he's healthy, right? There's one side of being like, build the chemistry and get him. That's why you acquired him so early, so you could sort of indoctrinate him in the system and get him, up to speed. That has happened a little bit, mostly on the defensive side, but I would much rather have a 100% Lindholm for game 1
Yep.
than an 85% Lindholm who had an extra 10 games learning the system.
Yes. That makes a lot of sense. So yeah, it'll be very fascinating to see what they say about Lindholm, what is ailing him and what their plan is for him. Remember, we are still waiting for Joshua to come back, although thankfully he skated
practice.
in non-contact jersey. Demko, as you mentioned, we both heard a week and a half from the end of the season. So that puts that at April 8, 9, as you mentioned. So starting to get a little bit of clarity. By the way, let's do really quickly, and then we can get to the people for the last 10 minutes. Canucks changed their D pairings. They went away from Hughes Hronek. They went Hughes Myers, Zadorov Hronek, Cole Soucy, and it ends up with Soucy getting 12 minutes of ice time tonight.
Yeah, that feels low, right?
Yeah.
Like, look, I get you're down a goal for most of the, frankly, you're down 2 for the entire third period, and in a tie game for the entire second. I understand you want to give, Quinn Hughes 26 minutes, but how does Soucy end up being the low minute guy?
I know.
Right? When I look at this lineup, Soucy's my number 3 or 4.
Yep. I agree.
Right? He should be getting more ice time than Ian Cole, in my opinion. He should probably be getting more ice time than Tyler Myers. Nope, scratch that. He should be getting more ice time than Tyler Myers. And he should probably be getting more ice time than Nikita Zadorov.
Yeah.
However, stat-wise, the most invisible of the group. Hronek's a -1, but he does have 5 shots. Ian Cole had 3 hits and an assist. And Soucy obviously just the 1 hit and a bunch of zeros in 12 minutes. Soucy has been such a stabilizer on this defense that to me, I think you got to get him out there.
Yep. Yeah. And I get it. They have 4 lefties, 2 righties. When Julesen's not in there, they got to figure out which guy is the best to play on the right side. And you're right, Parker. Great point. The Canucks were chasing the game down. So you're in order of offense, you're going Hughes, Myers, or Hughes, Hronek, then Myers, Zadorov even ahead of Soucy. So I get that too. But yeah, rough night for Soucy. He's the one who's supposed to jump off the bench, as Viper pointed out, and then the second goal goes off of him.
It's tough, and look, maybe Talkett's perspective is, hey, we're just gonna sit you and you'll get him next time, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's okay. But I'm just looking through the stats from tonight's game. Like no forward had like one forward had 3 shots, Connor Garland.
Mhm.
Lafferty had 2. No one else had more than 1.
Yeah, it's all those ones. Look at that. Crazy.
8 hits for Lafferty. Good on him. But he was useless in the faceoff circle, frankly.
Yeah.
So that impacts his ice time, right? He's the second lowest minute man up front with 11:45. And then defensively, Soucy obviously being way lower than everyone else, playing half of what Quinn Hughes did. While everyone else is sort of in their normal range, right? Hronek at 22, Hughes at 26.5 is a little high. That's, playoffs. That's where he'll be though.
Yeah.
Myers at 21 is high. Cole at 17.5 is fine. Zadorov at 18.5 is fine. I'd like to see some of those Hronek and Myers minutes go to Soucy, and maybe a couple of the Hughes minutes as well. But that's the route they went.
And despite Japan for getting into fights with people in the chat, he does make a really good point here. And I agree with this completely, because Talkit has referred to this, that whether you call it a luxury or whatever, they're going to win the Pacific. Likely they have 10 games to, whether you call it experiment or try things out. I think they're trying line combinations, and I do think they're trying deep. I don't think they're intentionally trying to lower Hronek's value. That's kind of funny theory though, but yeah, they want to see if they can go with these type of pairings, and maybe tonight suggested that they can't, but they do have that luxury. I'll use that word of being trying things before the playoffs.
Yeah, and it's a weird game to try things in, frankly, down a goal for most of the third period.
Yeah.
Especially for how good this team has been, we don't have a lot of confidence in any of the units. Like power play is getting messed with, D pairing 1 is getting messed with. All the lines are like in a blender half the time.
Our penalty kill has been good. Penalty kills been good.
It's easy to forget that this is a 98-point team right now. That's projected by the Athletic to get 110 points. Yeah. When we're like, oh, the power play's useless. Oh, the penalty kill's not doing anything. Oh, we can't win a face-off. You can't, do we do the lotto line? Do we go, Pettersson, Miller, Suter, or do we put Lindholm there? Do we put Miller on the wing? Like, this is a 110-point team we're talking about here, most likely.
Yep.
And we're so used to this like scramble of like who goes where, and you got to optimize every little bit, that I think once we get into the playoffs, we should see some stability. Again, assuming health and everything, you're going to see Hughes and Hronek together, most likely. Because again, that got them to this point, right?
Yes.
And I understand trying little things, seeing if you can get a 1% edge here or there. But at the end of the day, if things don't work, they have a really good base to fall back on.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I agree.
All right. 2 quick games to preview this week. Canucks play Thursday at 7 against Dallas. That's going to be a heck of a hockey game. And then Sunday at 12:30. That's Easter egg hunt time on Sunday, being Easter Sunday. But yeah, just 2 games this week. Like I mentioned, 10 games in the next 24 days, essentially. The Canucks season wraps up on April 18th with 72 games played. So 2 games to predict. I mean, Dallas is going to be a hard one. Ottinger's been good. They have a really good team. 97 points. They've won their last 4. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They're just heating up. Them and I mean, they're just battling Colorado, right? Colorado's won 9 in a row, and they're just battling for the top of the Central. They're battling for the Prezi. And they're essentially in the same place as the Canucks right now.
Yep. You talk about all those good things that Dallas has been doing. That's why I say the Canucks will win and clinch.
Canucks are at home, but DeSmith will obviously start. So it's probably a toss-up odds-wise. I'll say the Canucks. I mean, look, if the Canucks are going to win this game, they're probably going to beat Anaheim. Although day games historically cursed for the Canucks. But I will go with a 2-0 prediction for the week.
I concur. And day games are cursed for the Canucks, but those are away day games. We don't know what it's like home day games. So
that is true. Not a lot of 12:30 starts at home.
I'm with you. 2-0. Let's do it.
All right. We should go to the people for the last 5 minutes or so.
Sure.
Let's lead it off with Edmund saying, once Dakota Joshua comes back, do you put him, Garland, and Bluger back together? Or do you keep Garland with Pettersson and Höglander and stick Joshua, I guess, on that third line with Lindholm and who else? Because you're keeping Miller, Besser, and I guess Suter together for the most part.
Yeah.
So it'd be Joshua, Lindholm,
Mikheyev.
Mikheyev, I guess.
Yeah. That
Where
does
do you
sound
go
like
with
it.
this?
As soon as you put Garland, Bluger, and Joshua together, then you're saying bye-bye to Lindholm as a center, right? Because that's
Right.
your third line. So now you could put Lindholm up with, you could go Miller, Besser. No. You put Lindholm, sorry, with PD and Hoglander, all Swedes as your second line because you have Garland off of that now. So I actually don't, I really think, Parker, that Tocchet wants Lindholm as a third line center to in the playoffs. So I think you go to this lifeline, as they've been calling it, as not an emergency, but it's an option. Just like you can go to the lotto line, as they did tonight a couple times, as an option. It's there, it works, but I'm not sure that you start with it.
I agree. I think the way that Garland's been playing lately, I think he's earned that ice time with Hoglander and with Pettersson. I think what you do is you keep Miller, Besser, Suter together. You keep Pettersson, Hoglander, Garland together, and then you put Joshua with Lindholm. And then that gives you some options, like you mentioned, right? You can stick the lotto line out there. You need a spark. You go lotto line. You go Garland, Bluger,
Joshua
and Joshua together, then you can put them out there for a bunch of the third period to try and get something going. And then your third line, you now have,
Lindholm, Hoglander, and Mikheyev. Not bad.
Yeah, which is fine, right? That's still three really good lines, even if they don't have as much chemistry together. So if you need a goal, then maybe you mess around with it and have those options. But I think with Joshua being out as long as he has been, maybe a bit of that magic might be lost. And you've seen Miller, Besser, and Suter work fairly well together. You've seen Hoglander. I mean, he's one of the best players at 5-on-5 in the NHL, right? He leads the NHL in 5-on-5 goals per 60.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's impressive for a guy making 1.1 a year. So yeah, I think you just ride with what you have right now. The team's been playing good. You can't let the one loss today skew that. They've won 3 of their last 4. They've won 7 of the last 10. Like, there's no reason to do any big shakeups right now.
Good. Fangirl says, do you think Joshua returns next week? Yeah, if your definition of next week is the end of next week, sure. Because once you are in a non-contact jersey, it's probably 1 or 2 practices like that, or just one, then at least 1 or 2 practices with contact, and then you're cleared to go. So I think Thursday is optimistic, maybe Sunday at the earliest. What do you think?
I think Sunday game is probably reasonable. They have a day off tomorrow. Practice Wednesday. They'll play Thursday.
Yeah.
Most likely practice one of the 2 days, Friday or Saturday, and have one of those as maybe an optional or as a day off.
Yeah.
And then Joshua should be ready for that Sunday game. And if not, you can put him in Tuesday against Vegas or Wednesday against Arizona on the back-to-back as fill in for some rest for somebody.
Yeah. So Sunday optimistic, Tuesday, Wednesday. Yeah, probable. Okay. I'll take it. What else we got?
Let's see here. We've made our predictions already.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Wallach, how do you feel about McCabe's increasing pace of play the last few games?
Up until tonight, I thought he's been great tonight. I thought none of the forwards except for, him and Lafferty, they played together with Bluger tonight, right? I thought that was the best line, actually. I thought
McCabe's been good.
Yeah.
I think I tweeted it out last week. Screw Lindholm. McCabe's the deadline edition. Like, what a turnaround we've seen from the first 66 games of the year, Ilya Mikheyev, to the past 6 games. He's got a bit more pep in his step. It looks like he just has a little bit more confidence.
Yeah.
And I remember because that was the day I flew home from my vacation, was the day that he scored against the Avalanche in that OT loss. And Halford and Brough, they were predicting that or at least Halford was predicting he was going to score that night because he was clearly looking better over the past, I guess that's 8 games now or so.
Correct.
He's a really important piece if he's going. Is he worth the contract? Most likely not. But if he can be geared up to this level, I think he can be a real impact player.
Yeah, you're right, Parker. With that Colorado game, he had 4 points in 5 games. He had actually 4 and 3, then 4, then 4 and 5, and then today blank 4 and 6. But even his ice time, we see it. He was doing 13 minutes a game. Then he was doing 15, 16, 15, 16, tonight 14. So even I guess that goes with playing higher. No, it's not even like playing higher in the lineup. He's just playing more, a little bit more. And that's because Rick Tocchet likes the way he's going.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Me too.
Yervin says, from my view, Petey looked invisible tonight. I want your take on this because I missed most of this game.
Yeah, I thought his line, as much as I wanted him, Hoglander and Garland to do well, I thought that they weren't as noticeable today. So I would not disagree with Irvin. And I got to meet Irvin at the game tonight, which is pretty cool. But I would agree. Invisible is a strong word, but PD was noticeable in the last 5 minutes when they were throwing everything at Talbot. But aside from that, yeah, not the strongest game for him. I agree.
Gurkamal asks, do you think Juleson plays Thursday?
Wow. So they part of this is interesting. They win the 2 games that Juleson's in. Then they take him out and they lose. And maybe
Cole sat, right?
He did for both games.
But Cole wasn't the low minute guy tonight. Or that's where he was second lowest. You know, he played 5 more minutes than Carson Soucy, though.
Yeah.
It makes you think that they're not going to take him out. But Juleson's been good. Like the last 35, 40, 45 games, like terrible start to the season. And we were saying, put Mark Friedman in, but he's been good. Coming off of a loss, they don't play for a few days. I don't see them taking Ian Cole out at any point. I think Juleson's going to be stuck at that number 7 spot unless Cole like really makes some blatant mistakes.
Right. And even if it's more for Sunday or the road trip, yeah, I think for this next game, you're not gonna yank Cole for the 3rd time in 4 games. I agree. I think Juleson will sit at least 1 more, so it's at least 2 in a row, and then we kind of go from there.
Edmund has an interesting question, but I want to reword it. He says, would you start Seelovs on Sunday? And I think that's silly. But I look at next week, you have a Tuesday, Wednesday back-to-back in Vegas and then in Arizona. Obviously, you probably don't want to play Casey Smith on a back-to-back.
Yep.
If Demko's ready for April 3rd, I guess you can put him in, but it doesn't sound like that's going to be the case. Do we see a backup, as in Seelovs, play perhaps on that Wednesday, April 3rd game?
Absolutely, yes, because prior to that, there's no need to play him. 2 days before the Dallas game, 2 days before the Anaheim game, and there's no way you're playing Seelovs in Vegas and DeSmith against Arizona. Even with the travel, with a day in between, DeSmith will play on Tuesday. I fully expect to see Seelovs on Wednesday night.
And there's that easy day in between, right? The Canucks play at 12:30 on Sunday. They can fly to Vegas and land by 7 p.m. on Sunday and have a full Monday off.
I was going to say maybe it'll be on their flight, but I think we're on different flights. They don't fly with the.
Or maybe they shouldn't fly till Monday night. Now that I think about it, do we really want to give the top team in the Pacific Division an extra night in Vegas to party? Maybe a bad idea.
I'll let you know if I see them, Parker, out on the strip. How's that?
Good luck. You might have to go to one of the nicer resorts.
Okay, fair enough.
Hit the Wynn or.
Oh, they won't be playing double deck at the Gold Coast with me. Then here's what you're saying.
Yeah, they're probably not going to be. They're probably not going to be on Fremont. They're probably not going to be at the Horseshoe.
Okay.
It's I assume it'll be somewhere nicer.
Love it.
Well, folks, it is past 11. Thank you all for joining. If you missed any part of the show, you're welcome to rewind back to the beginning here on YouTube or find it on your favorite podcast platform in a matter of 10 to 15 minutes. Before we wrap up, Clay, any parting words this Monday night?
Great show again, Parker. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know our viewers and subscribers, they really like to know what's happening because you and I were talking about, they know I'm going to be away next week. Do you know what you're going to do yet? Or are you going to figure it out?
I don't. I have softball at 9:10, which is a terrible time for softball, so I won't be home till like 10:30. So if there is a show next week, it will be at like 11 p.m. and it will be me and somebody else, or it will just be me. So we will figure something out. So make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, and I'll put something in the community tab, or make sure you follow both of us on Twitter, and we'll probably tweet something out.
We'll help each other out. Exactly.
All right, folks. Thank you all for joining. Have a lovely week. Hopefully it's a 2-0 week for the Canucks. A couple of nights off here with the big game on Thursday. Have a good one. See you next time.